Well, this morning when I was preparing my preparing for this message, intuitively I was sitting at my kitchen table just taking in my notes and so forth, and there was an intuitive voice within me that just said, "Stay close. Stay close." And it reminded me of a couple of months ago. I was sitting out on my back patio. Once again, this voice came intuitively to me that said, "Stay close to me and I will stay close to you." And how important it is as human beings to stay close to people that we love and that are around us and part of our lives. And we stay close with the Spirit through core truths or core beliefs that we may have that are, to me anyway, constantly under review. That a theology may be apparent for each one of us. A theology is the study of and the belief of God. And I can't say that I am satisfied with a theology about God, because at a very early age I started to feel something that was wanting to be born in me, which was about a relationship with my God. And so my core truth, something that I stay close to, is being a stand for that with people. That we can have all types of beliefs about God, but do they nurture us or do they separate us from that living essence that we are all very much thirsting for, the fulfillment, the felt knowing of the divine in our lives? And so it is a credo of sorts, a core belief of truth that I endeavor to bring forth with people, because I know that we have many levels of being. Our social needs, our fellowship needs for staying close to our friends and so forth. But we are spiritual beings, living in a spiritual universe and governed by spiritual law. So what I bring forth today and every Sunday is somehow connected to a magnification of that felt knowing in you. Why else would we gather if not for that primary purpose? And we gather to understand, to be inspired, so that our lives are blessed, that we throw off that which is not true, and we stand within the light of our being, and we live from that place in our own sovereignty, our own autonomy as individuals in God. It is promoted within the unity tradition that God is within us. That is not promoted within all faith traditions. But I would like to extend that even more, that God not only dwells within us, but we dwell within God. That there is an omnipresence of God, even in this room, in this very time right now, that we're sharing, that the atmosphere is rich with particles of the divine. And that if we become still enough, we can intuit and feel that. And that's how healing takes place. Because The healing is the realization that God is present, and that which has been a burden to us, that we have carried, is dissolved and released. And that's really the good news of the teachings. And so, my intention with you today is to look at our core truths. What are we staying close to in our spiritual lives? And one way that I have found that is instrumental in deepening our relationship with the divine is through examining not only what happens in this life as a practical application, but the ongoingness of life, what might be called the afterlife. And so I'm working with something today, some content by a woman who wrote a book. Her name is Lisa Smart. Lisa is a linguist, the study of languages. But what's unique about Lisa's work is that she's focused on the last words of people as they leave this life. And you may have a part of you that says, well, that's somewhat morbid. Why would I want to hear what people are saying at the very end of their life? I'm all about living now. But within the depiction of her report, the veil between this life and the next seems to be thin. And the people that are on the verge of transitioning into the next life have moments of great clarity. And that through becoming more aware of that process, that we here in our lifetime can become inspired by and strengthened by that process. And so Lisa Smart has worked closely with Dr. Raymond Moody, who has made a lifetime out of the study of near-death experiences. And that is a term that he coined or brought about, near-death experiences. And I would like to share with you some of these reports. Lisa Smart had no investment in near-death experiences until her father started to have these shifts. His view of God or the divine was a good corned beef sandwich and a glass of cream soda. That was the extent of the divine for him. Because there's nothing, he thought that there was nothing beyond this world. So we might as well completely enjoy every little thing. And I completely support that. Life is for living. So enjoy a good corned beef sandwich. But as he came nearer to his own transition, his perception started to change. And he started to have these experiences. Lisa Smart reported that he started to hear and see angels. And in fact, they told him that 3 days prior to his transition that he would. And he did. But he was seeing all types of divine beings that were all around him. Lisa Smart also interviewed many ministers, hospice workers, nurses that worked with people in their transitional process. And there was a Reverend Carl Rush Willis who was engaged in going to prisons and being with inmates as they were beginning to make their transition. That was his ministry. And he came into a cell of a man who was known as an old crusty Texan. Don't know what his name was, but he was known as an old crusty Texan. And you can imagine, being in prison for a long time, that he was kind of jaded and crusty. But Reverend Willis gave a report of something that I found fascinating. This man, this Texan, said he was sitting at his bedside looking up into the corner of his cell. And he said, "I can see something broad and vast," with tears flowing down his face. He said, "God is greater than I could hope for or even imagine." So there was no judgment. There was no evaluation of this man for being in prison or whatever he had done during his life. There was simply an opening, a blessing that he was beholding as he was having these moments before his physical transition. Thomas Edison, the great inventor, experienced a coma some days before his passing and stated when he had come out of it for just a little while before he made his transition, he said, "It is very beautiful over there." So my intention, again, is not about morbidity, but freedom. That you and I have core concepts, perhaps, of how we live. And we carry around, perhaps, a bag of baggage, of stuff that we think we did wrong. And that God has a grudge against us. Truth be known, that is self-inflicted nonsense, otherwise known as sin. Self-inflicted nonsense. Another woman in the book, Sandra, she stated, "I cannot put words to the experience. There is no way I can fully explain it." And my hope with us today in having this conversation, even though you're not speaking, but you're thinking, I'm looking forward to the great adventure. Where are we within that process? Another one report from the book. A woman named Chaz Ebert, who was the wife of Roger Ebert, of Siskel and Ebert fame, the movie critics, some years ago. Roger Ebert would go in and out of consciousness. But when he came back into lucidity and speaking with his wife, he said, "I'm having the strangest experiences. I'm visiting other planes, other places." And he said of this world, and I quote, "This is all an elaborate hoax. This world is all an illusion." Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Now, I'd like to just work with that just a little bit. You know, the Course in Miracles talks about this world being an illusion. Buddhism talks about this being an illusion. Hinduism talks about this world being an illusion. Jesus talking about judge not by appearances, that the appearances of this world are an illusion. But I would like to throw in my hat into the ring that this world is not an illusion, that the earth is a sacred, holy place. But what is an illusion and what is a hoax is what we make up about it. We have all kinds of stories, don't we, about what this world is and means, and all of the cultural nuances and everything that we should or would or could do in order to be a good person, to stay within alignment with community standards and be accepted and loved. Well, all that is part of the agreements of the world, which is an orderly process. But if we get stuck, or as Henry David Thoreau said, live lives of quiet desperation, then we have to question our core truths, do we not? To question them. What do we want to stay close to? Who are we, really? Another great report in the last words of 31 blind participants, that had near-death experiences. 80% of those 31 participants who had near-death experiences reported that they could see during these experiences not only the next world, but reported on the weather that was happening outside of the hospice or the hospital. They could see the dress of the hospital staff that were caring for them. How could that be? Well, we're talking about soul vision. That even though these individuals were outside of their body, having a near-death experience, their awareness was heightened and they could see with spiritual eyes. Which to me, I don't know about you, but it means that the soul continues. That the body is a beautiful instrument of communication, but it is the mortal shell. That we are not the body, that we are the soul. The ever-ongoing life, deathless. So many people in Christianity think that Jesus came to save us from our sins. My interpretation of that lifetime is that he was to prove that there is no death. That he had mastered and allowed something that we are becoming. The Christ energy, the Christ self, that is the whole reason for, on a very fundamental level, why we're here. To allow this Christ self to blossom and to be born and to move beyond our constraints and the images and the messages. That's the primary healing, that we become whole. To me, this is the solution This is the spiritual solution of all of life, for all of humanity, and that humanity in the coming years and decades we are going to explore more and more through sensitive scientific instruments the reality of the soul, and how beautiful that will be to realize finally through empirical evidence that we are deathless beings. There was one story that has relevance to my talk title today. I almost missed it. One woman named Andrea said of her aunt, the day before her aunt passed, "I'm getting ready for the big dance." The transition into the next life. She knew on a certain level, I'm getting ready for the next dance, the big dance. You and I are getting ready for the big dance. And the beautiful thing about it is that we don't have to wait. We can participate in the big dance now. Emily Dickinson said, upon the last words before she made her transition, she said, "I must go. The fog is lifting." Isn't that beautiful? I must go. The fog is lifting. It's time for me to go into greater life. So, what I would close with is an ongoing promotion for all of us to know, to feel and to know that life is eternal. Perhaps then we can relax, but be forever mindful at the same time, because everything is sacred. Thank you.